Picture this. You're at a backyard barbecue. Everyone's laughing, someone's refilling drinks, the music's easy. And then your friend's boyfriend walks in. The one your friend seems fine with. The one who says all the right things. And your dog, who moments ago was happily accepting hot dog scraps from strangers, goes completely still. Ears forward, body low, and then a growl. Low, steady, unmistakable. You're embarrassed. You apologize. You put your dog inside and tell yourself, he's just weird with new people. But here's the thing. 3 months later, you find out that guy had been lying to your friend for years. And you wonder, did your dog know something you didn't? Most people assume a growling dog is a badly behaved dog, an overprotective dog, a dog that needs more training. But behavioral neuroscience tells a completely different story. What your dog is doing in that moment, that low rumble, that stillness, that locked gaze, is one of the most sophisticated threat detection processes in the animal kingdom. A cross-modal sensory assessment that integrates information no human conscious brain can process fast enough. And most owners have no idea. Before we go any further, if you're the kind of person who wants to actually understand your dog, not just manage them, subscribe to Pet Mind right now. We do this every week. Real science, explain like it matters. Because it does. Let's start with the common theory, because it sounds reasonable. The popular explanation is simple. Some dogs are just poorly socialized. They didn't meet enough people as puppies. They're reactive, anxious, and when they growl at someone specific, it's a random misfire, a training failure, not meaningful information. It sounds logical, and if it were true, the solution would be straightforward. More exposure, better conditioning, a professional trainer. But here's the problem. Dogs who growl selectively, not at everyone, not randomly, but specifically at certain individuals, aren't showing generalized fear. They're showing targeted assessment. A poorly socialized dog is usually afraid of types of stimuli. Men with hats, people in uniforms, loud voices. Their fear is categorical. But the dog at the barbecue? He was fine with every other person there. He'd accepted treats from someone taller, louder, and wearing a baseball cap. He zeroed in on one specific individual. So what was he detecting? Your dog experiences the world through at least 3 sensory channels simultaneously that you, literally, cannot access consciously. The first is olfactory cortisol detection. When a person is stressed, deceptive, or emotionally aroused, their body produces cortisol and releases it through sweat. Humans can't smell this. Dogs absolutely can. A 2016 study from Queen's University Belfast, led by Dr. Clara Wilson, demonstrated that dogs can detect human stress odors with greater than 90% accuracy, distinguishing relaxed sweat samples from stressed sweat samples from the same person with remarkable reliability. When someone is lying, performing charm, or suppressing anxiety, their sympathetic nervous system is active. Their cortisol is elevated. Their sweat composition changes. Your dog smells that before they've even looked at the person. The second is microexpression reading. A 2015 study from the University of Vienna, one of the most cited in canine cognition, showed that dogs can read human facial expressions, including subtle emotional cues, and respond differentially to them. Dogs in the study consistently showed stress responses to angry faces and relaxed body language around happy faces, even when presented as photographs, removing all other context. But here's where it gets really interesting. Dogs don't just read the face you're presenting. Research from the Animal Cognition Lab at Lincoln University suggests dogs are sensitive to the mismatch between facial expression and body posture, the kind of mismatch that happens when someone is performing friendliness they don't actually feel. The third is postural asymmetry. A 2018 study in the journal Animal Cognition found that dogs show measurable hemispheric lateralization, meaning they process emotionally threatening stimuli with the right brain hemisphere and approach positive stimuli with the left. When a dog encounters someone whose posture signals threat, even unconsciously, even subtly, their nervous system flags it before their owner's brain has finished assembling the social cues. And what they found was extraordinary. The dog's behavioral response, including growling, often preceded any conscious alarm in the human observer. They were verbalizing an assessment your brain hadn't finished making yet. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't just about threat detection. It's about who your dog has decided to protect. John Bowlby's attachment theory developed in the 1960s to describe the bond between infants and primary caregivers, describes a system where proximity to a trusted figure signals safety and separation signals danger. For decades, this was considered uniquely human. Then a landmark study came out of the Family Dog Project at Yavuz Laran University in Budapest, led by Dr. Adam McCloskey. That changed everything. They ran a version of the classic strange situation test used on human infants. Dogs were placed with their owners, then briefly separated, then reunited, with a stranger present as a control. And what they found mirrored infant behavior almost exactly. Dogs showed distress at separation, relief at reunion, and used their owner as what attachment researchers call a secure base, a safe point from which to explore the world. This isn't metaphorical. The neural substrates of attachment, the oxytocin system, the amygdala response, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, function in dogs almost identically to how they function in human children. When your dog growls at someone who approaches you, they are performing the single most fundamental behavior in attachment psychology. They are protecting their secure base, their safe person. They're not being aggressive. They're telling you, you are the most important thing in my world, and I will not let anything threaten that. When did this start? The answer is basically from the beginning. Before agriculture, before cities, before writing. Approximately 15,000 to 40,000 years ago, genetic evidence points to a range, but behavioral domestication likely began even earlier. Wolves began approaching human encampments. Not because humans invited them, but because bolder, less fearful wolves discovered that proximity to humans meant access to food scraps, warmth, and protection from larger predators. Over generations, humans selected, consciously and unconsciously, for wolves that read human social cues well. Wolves that understood human gaze direction, that responded to human emotional states, that integrated into the human social hierarchy. In 2009, archaeologists excavating a burial site in Bonnober Castle, Germany, uncovered the remains of a dog buried alongside two humans, dated at approximately 14,200 years ago. The dog showed signs of juvenile distemper, a fatal disease. To survive as long as it did, it would have required months of intensive human care. This wasn't a working animal. This was a family member. And the genetics are extraordinary. Domestic dogs carry unique insertions in the GTF2I gene on chromosome 6, the same gene associated with hypersociality in humans. Williams-Beuren syndrome, a genetic condition in people, produces extreme friendliness and intense social engagement through the same gene. Dogs evolved it independently through 15 millennia of co-selection with us. Your dog isn't doing something unusual when they protect you from a person they've assessed as threatening. They're doing something that's been selected for across hundreds of generations of evolution. Now, I want to tell you about a finding that nobody talks about, because the implication seems impossible at first. When researchers at Goldsmiths University London studied human intuitive judgments about people, using the psychological construct of thin slicing, the ability to make accurate assessments from very limited information, they found that humans are actually remarkably accurate in their initial threat assessments of others. The catch? Conscious processing overrides that initial read. Social norms, politeness, optimism bias. We talk ourselves out of our instinctive discomfort because we don't want to seem rude, paranoid, or unfair. And yet, almost every single participant in retrospective interviews about betrayal, manipulation, or abuse reported the same thing. I had a feeling early on. I ignored it. How is that possible? Because intuition isn't magic. It's rapid, unconscious pattern recognition operating below the threshold of verbal thought, integrating the same microexpression data, the same postural asymmetry, the same olfactory adjacent cues, at a speed your prefrontal cortex can't match. Your dog doesn't have a prefrontal cortex telling them to be polite. They don't override the threat signal. They just report it. Maybe your dog isn't being difficult. Maybe they're giving your instincts a voice they didn't know they had. And this is where it gets deep. A 2022 study from Linköping University in Sweden, published in Scientific Reports, measured heart rate variability in dogs and their owners during both separation and reunion. What they found reshapes everything. During calm, bonded interaction, dogs and their owners showed correlated heart rate variability patterns. Their nervous systems were in sync. When the owner was calm, the dog was calm. When the owner showed subtle physiological stress, elevated HR, reduced HRV, the dog's autonomic nervous system shifted to match. This only happened within bonded pairs. Dogs paired with strangers showed no such synchronization. The physiological entrainment was specific to established attachment relationships. Which means this: when your dog growls at someone your gut already doubts, they may be picking up on your own autonomic stress response. The cortisol change in your sweat, the microtension in your posture, things you haven't consciously registered yet. They're not just reading the stranger. They may be reading you and sounding the alarm that your own nervous system is already raising. There's one last thing I need to tell you, and it might be the most important part of this video. If your dog has been protective of you, alert, watchful, consistent in their responses, for months or years, and one day that behavior simply stops, don't brush it off. Dogs are creatures of deeply established habit. When a behavioral pattern that has been consistent for years disappears overnight, there is always a reason. Sometimes it's environmental, a new person in the home, a change in your schedule, a shift in the household dynamic that has altered your dog's sense of security. Sometimes, and this matters, it's pain. Joint pain, abdominal discomfort, or neurological changes can suppress a dog's engagement and alertness before any limping or stiffness appears. Behavior change is often the first clinical sign, not the last. And in older dogs, cognitive dysfunction syndrome, the canine equivalent of dementia, affects an estimated 28% of dogs aged 11 to 12 and over 68% of dogs aged 15 to 16, according to research published in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior. It can present first as a change in protective or attachment behaviors. Your dog doesn't have language. Behavior is the only way they can tell you something is wrong. If they go quiet when they've always been watchful, listen. So the next time your dog goes still at a party, the next time that low rumble starts, aimed at someone everyone else seems to like, remember what's actually happening. Your dog is running a threat assessment more sophisticated than anything your conscious mind can complete in that moment. They're integrating olfactory data on cortisol levels, reading micro-expressions your eye skips over, detecting postural asymmetries your politeness filters out, and cross-referencing all of it against the most fundamental attachment priority in their nervous system, keeping you safe. 15,000 years of coevolution, a sensory system that operates beneath the threshold of human conscious awareness, and a bond so neurologically deep that their autonomic nervous system has learned to mirror yours. All pointed at one thing: you are their person, and they will not stay quiet about a threat, even when you will. The next time it happens, you don't have to act on it. But maybe don't dismiss it either. If this changed how you see your dog, even slightly, subscribe to Pet Mind and drop a comment below. I want to know, has your dog ever growled at someone who later turned out to be exactly who your dog thought they were? Tell me the story. The comment section on this one is going to be something.